What is up, guys? It's the Sound Alchemist, and today I'm back to talk to you about Warhammer 40k. More specifically, we're going to take a deep dive into the new stratagems available for the Tau in their new book for the Psychic Awakening, The Greater Good. And I, for one, when I first heard of stratagems way back when, I was like, yeah, this doesn't seem like something that's going to be like game changing or anything like that, because it revolves around command points, and it was such a new mechanic that I didn't think people were going to stick to it right away. And boy, was I wrong. Stratagems are almost like the lifeblood of 8th edition, because basically in previous editions you built a list, and that list was your everything. It really came down to who could build the better list, and the dice gods, really. But with stratagems, depending on how you use them, when you use them, they can really turn the tide of a battle just like that. And I feel like there's a few of them in here that do just that. So, sit down, because I'm pretty sure most of you guys don't have school or work, or if you do have work, you're working from home because of that blessing from Nurgle, I guess you can say, or more specifically, the virus of Corona. So anyway, let's sit back, let's enjoy as we dive into the Tau Empire stratagems. So let's begin with the generic one, the one that pretty much everybody's getting from the Psychic Awakening. For the Tau, this is called Promising Pupil. It's only a single command point, but what this does is that you use a stratagem before the beginning of the battle. You pick one person to be your warlord, obviously, and then you pick another person to be essentially like a mini warlord, because they also get a warlord trait. You can't double up on warlord traits, but it is pretty interesting with the whole combinations and like synergy and stuff like that with the Tau. So this might be something looking into. I, for one, it's cool, it's gimmicky, but I think there's more interesting ones than Promising Pupil. But the lore is pretty cool. That's kind of like you're saying, like you could be like the bodyguard to your warlord commander, and like the warlord is kind of teaching you the art of war as you're in the battle zone. So lore-wise, it's pretty cool. But anyway, let's continue on. Now, I've had a love-hate relationship with the Croute, and this one is kind of pushing me towards using Croute in my enclaves. It used to be that you could not have any Croute or Vespid within your Farside Enclave detachment or whatever, but now that they pretty much opened it up, this is pretty interesting, because for a single command point, you use this stratagem at the beginning of your opponent's shooting phase. You select one unit of Croute, and until the end of that phase, any ranged weapon attack that hits your Croute, it basically has a harder time hitting by a -1. So it just makes your Croute a little more survivable, and on top of that, you also get to add one to your saving throw, which is really good. So not only does your opponent have a harder time hitting them, but when they do hit your Croute, it's not just an automatic, okay, like, remove it from the battlefield. I don't know. Croute, I feel like, aren't supposed to be the main thing about your army. They're kind of more like that sacrificial unit, the guys that you put in front of your gun line so that they can get charged first, so that your gun line can keep shooting. So it might be interesting to keep a few more Croute alive. That way you can keep your unit still behind a few remaining Croute. It's wishy-washy, but it's still a pretty good ability. Like, having the benefit of cover as well as making your save easier to hit, who wouldn't want that? Now let's say your unit of fire warriors does get charged. Point blank volley is your savior, because obviously we all know the Tau are horrible in close combat. But what this does, this makes all your pulse blasters, pulse carbines, and pulse rifles change their type to pistol 2. And pistols can fire in close combat. So it's really good, because not only do you get to essentially shoot as you're stuck in combat, you can also mop up the floor with whatever you have with your regular melee attacks, which you're probably not going to do much, but still, like, this could be very instrumental in killing off like maybe a single point HQ that is charged in or something like that. So do not forget about point blank volley. It can literally save you from dying in combat. This next one is really interesting because I thought snipers already had this. But for one command point, you get the Seasoned Sniper Stratagem. So you pick a Farsight Marksman, and until the end of the shooting phase, they can target a character even if they're not the closest unit. I thought snipers already have the sniper ability, which means you could snipe characters. Why don't they already have this? I don't know, but it's kind of annoying. Like, the Tau should have this. Why aren't there sniper drones have the sniper ability? That's stupid. If I'm wrong, tell me, because this seems to be like, why is this a stratagem? Why shouldn't this be a thing? But anyway, I'm raging, and speaking of that, we have another stratagem called Raging Beasts for a single command point. Of course, this has to deal with the bestial Croute of the Croute. So you pick a Croute rider, and in the fight phase, until the end of that phase, models in that unit have an attack characteristic of 4. So they get a little bit more attacks, and on top of this, any armor penetration characteristics of the Croute fist models are improved by 2. So if you do hit with the Croute, it's going to be doing more damage, which is really good. Why you're using a Croute? I don't know. Maybe you're holding out for that Croute mercenary codex that never came. But anyway, it's interesting if you're playing Croute, because usually I only see either just a conga line of Croute, or maybe a few Croute hounds here and there, but Croute are becoming rarer and rarer. Please change that, GW. We need a Croute mercenary codex. And we'll continue on with the Croute theme with ambushing predators. This basically just makes a Croute unit from your army easier to get into combat. They can do a heroic intervention as if they were a character, and on top of that, if there are any enemy units within 6 inches of them, instead of 3 inches, they can move 6 inches instead of those normal 3 inch. So basically you get to push your Croute blob into combat easier, and you can pile in an extra 6 inches to get more bodies within range of attacking. Cool, I guess. The Pack Alpha Stratagem is also a single command point, and you use this before the battle even begins. You select a Croute Shaper from your army, and until the end of the game, whenever you make an advance roll for that Croute, as long as you're within 6 inches of that model, you get to roll an additional d6 and discard one of the die. Again, it's making it easier to get into combat, which is where the Croute shine. I say that with air quotes, because even though Croute are kind of like a designated close combat-y force, they're not that great. They're essentially just like guardsmen, toughness 3, strength 3, I believe, so it helps them get there, but I'm pretty sure nobody's going to be really using any of these stratagems for the Croute. What we want to see is the ones for the Tau, so let's dive into those Tau-specific stratagems. This one is probably one of the best stratagems for the Tau, especially if you play Farsight. For 2 command points, coordinated engagement really bolsters the effectiveness of your crisis battlesuits or crisis bodyguards in the shooting phase, because until the end of that phase, when you're making an attack, you're shooting as if the enemy you're attacking has 5 marker lights. That is the golden number for marker lights that you want to get, because like you're hitting at a better BS, you're re-rolling ones, I think you're ignoring cover, like that is really what you want. Tying this one with like a really anti tank crisis suit team is guaranteed to kill whatever tanks or big creatures that your opponent has. So definitely I would use this in tandem with deep striking from your Manta. You drop down with your bodyguards or with your crisis suits. They're equipped either with like fusion blasters, or maybe you're going the DACA way and give everybody 3 burst cannons or cyclic ion blasters. And pretty much whatever you're shooting at is guaranteed to die. Now keep in mind, if your opponent is Dark Eldar, they do have a stratagem that could essentially stop your stratagems from working, which kind of would leave you out in the open and very vulnerable if you don't kill what you're trying to kill. So keep that in mind, because clearly this is a S tier stratagem for the Tau. This next one is also pretty good, especially if you're playing like the Storm Surge or a Riptide. For 1 command point, you get modulated weaponry. You use this in the shooting phase, and until you're done shooting, you fire with the full characteristic of the heavy weapon that model has. So for example, if you have like a heavy D6 weapon, you're automatically shooting 6 shots. No need to roll. That's really good, especially if you're like on the bottom tiers of your battle suit, and like you're hitting on like a horrible roll, like I don't know, ballistic skill 5 or something like that. This gives you a better chance of hitting with your weaponry because you're not just rolling like a d6 and maybe you get like a 1 or 2. You're automatically gonna shoot at your full capacity of shots. This next one is really good if you are using the what are they called, breachers, I believe. Pulse Onslaught for a single command point makes your breachers range increase all the way up to 15 inches. So no need to kind of get in really close to make use of your breachers. You can kind of shoot from the safety of being 15 inches away. Pretty cool, I guess. I, for one, have never really used Fire Warriors, so I'm not really sure exactly the power of breachers. I know strike teams usually are the way to go because their guns strength 5 and they have a larger range. But if you play breachers, or maybe you're playing like a, I don't know, because Kill Team has different rules, so don't worry about that. Wisdom of the Many. This is specifically for your ethereals. Until the end of the phase of movement, you can invoke an additional elemental power from the ethereals, as long as it's not one that you've already used. So that's pretty cool. Essentially, you can make your guys more sturdy, shoot better, longer range, I believe. It has something to do with like earth, wind, water, fire, that kind of thing. Essentially, they become the avatar, and they get to do more abilities, which is good. It's very good. Alright, here we go again with these sniper drones. For 2 command points, you get Deadly Aim. You use this during your shooting phase, when a drone from your army is chosen to fire. Until the end of that phase, the AP of the Longshot Pulse Rifles is improved by 1, which is good. And you get a little bonus. Until the end of the phase, when you make an attack with that weapon against a unit that is within half range, then the AP also increases by 1. So potentially you could have an AP minus 2, I believe, because I don't know if they have an AP value. So if you're shooting your snipers at something that's really close, you deal more damage, which I guess would make sense, because if you get shot with a sniper rifle at like shotgun range, I think that'll do more damage than like shooting you from afar. I don't know, it's just a thought. Again, never used snipers, but this might be pretty interesting, especially that now tied in with the seasoned sniper ability, then your snipers can shoot more accurately at characters and maybe take them out. Again, I never use snipers, but it seems pretty interesting. This next one is also pretty spicy. Aerial targeting. Essentially, this is lore-wise when a member of the air cast has pinpointed somebody with a marker light. So, use this stratagem in your shooting phase, select an enemy unit, and until the end of that phase, whenever you attack that unit with a ranged weapon, you treat that unit as having a single marker light. So what that means is you get to reroll ones. It's good, especially if you could maybe pair it up with another stratagem that automatically grants you, I think it's D3 marker lights to increase that up. So just more ways to get marker lights on your enemy is always good. So for a single command point, it's not bad. Definitely not bad at all. Sworn Bodyguards is interesting because it has to deal with close combat, and that's not where you want to be, especially with your battle suits. Unless you're playing Fireside Enclaves and you have like the Fusion Blades or the Onager Gauntlet. But anyway, what this does is you choose a bodyguard unit in the fight phase, and until the end of that phase, whenever they're making an attack, in melee of course, as long as they're within 3 inches of a character, they get to re-roll hit rolls as well as the wound. So just making the bodyguard fight a little harder to protect their warlord. Lore-wise, it kind of makes sense to put the Promising Pupil in Sworn Bodyguard if you're trying to make something very thematic. So it's like I said earlier, your second in command is being trained by the warlord, and somehow they got stuck in close combat, and the warlord is kind of taking the brunt of the attacks. So that's when your bodyguard, he's like, hey, you know, this is my time to shine, and he actually gets pumped up and fights better for honor and for his warlord. So thematically, it's cool. Would you really want to spend 2 command points to do this? Probably not, unless you're doing, like I said, a narrative campaign or something like that. So. And there's only one more stratagem, and that is the Rain of Fire. It has to do with the Vespids, but nobody plays that, so let's just skip right over it. I'm just playing. Vespids are actually pretty good now, especially against just regular Marines. So what this single command point does is that you choose a Vespid Stingwind unit from your army in the shooting phase, and until the end of that phase, whenever you make an attack with this unit, I guess, you get to use the Plunge from the Sky ability, as well as re-rolling the hit roll. Again, you're not going to see this used often. Nobody plays Vespids, but I guess if you do, they gave you a bone on this one. So that's where I'm going to leave off on this video. We still have the prototype weapons as well as the SEP tenets to cover, so stay subscribed for that, guys. The tenets are very interesting because you get to create your own sept, so you can kind of mix and match 2 of these to make a really kind of diverse faction of the Tau. But I'll get into that later, like I said. So let me know, hands down, which is the best stratagem from the new Psychic Awakening book. For me, hands down, no question asked, coordinated engagement, because I used battle suits, and having 5 marker lights on something is always what you want to be doing. So yeah, let me know what's your favorite. Let me know what stratagem you guys would like to create for the Tau to kind of give them a little bit more oomph in the battle game. But yeah, that's all I got. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Stay safe, wash your hands, and go buy out entire stores of supply of toilet paper and Lysol products and hand sanitizer, because it's crazy out there. Nurgle, you doing too much. Anyway, this has been the Sound Alchemist, part of One Mind Syndicate, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.